All right, hey everyone. In the last video, we went ahead and completed the clothing for our character, and we are getting very close. We're now going to just wrap up the goggles in this video, and then the hammer in the following one, and then we'll be pretty much all set with the character. So, if you've been following along, thank you. I appreciate that. Always throw a like and sub, which will help this channel grow. So it's been growing steadily over the past few months, so any bit will help. So let's get right to it. We're going to take a look at adding these goggles, okay? And if we take a look at some of the reference, this is essentially kind of what we're going for. It's going to be, you can either go this very circular route, this more oblong route that you see here. And this right here is actually a turbo squid model, but I think it gets the point across. We aren't going to be doing all that much detail, adding a lot of straps and screws and stuff like that. It's going to be fairly simple, but the form is going to be there, and it's definitely going to have glass, leather, and a strap here in the back. Okay, so let's just start out by creating a cylinder. Now, we definitely want to start out by creating a cylinder that has 16 subdivisions. Okay, I always say you definitely want to create it 8, 16, 32. It just makes it easier to, remove and add geometry if you use a power of 2. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of position this here in front of the eye, and like this, and then increase the radius quite a bit. Right, he's got a big eye here. All right, and we'll go ahead and just kind of position it something like this, maybe a radius of about 4.5. All right, we'll start there, and we kind of have it centered to his eye. What I also want to do is add 3 subdivision caps. Okay, now the key thing here is we're going to start creating this flat and one-sided, and then we'll add thickness once we get the whole of the goggles done, the whole one side. So I'm going to control 1, isolate, jump to face mode, and press B to turn off soft select if you're in soft select. And then I'll just jump to the modeling toolkit so you can kind of see which tool that I'm using. I'm going to go ahead and just select essentially the thickness of the lens here for the goggle and delete. Okay, and we have this now just flat, one-sided. You can see it's black on the other side because it's one-sided. And before I do anything else, I want to give this, some form. So like I said, you can see that these aren't perfectly flat. You can actually add some curvature. And instead of pulling and moving verts, let's just go ahead and use some deformers, okay? And we're going to start by using Lattice. Okay, and if I jump to my channel box editor here on the right, I can set this to 3 subdivisions in the S and U. And all I'm going to do now is hold right click, jump to lattice point, and just kind of move this out a little bit. So it kind of has that eye shape that we're looking for, and scale it down. Okay, remember, if I jump to wireframe, these lattice points are great because all you have to do is kind of just change the main form. It's like an FFD, freeform deformer, and you can kind of just continue to move that. And you can even maybe scale this in. Okay, so I think we are good here. All right, maybe just take one last look at, kind of this shape that we're going for. Feel free to be creative and come up with your own. But I think, yeah, it's wide towards the nose and then becomes narrow towards the end. So that'll work with our character. So I will go ahead and now delete history. And I want to add a couple of bends, okay? So you'll see this is why I added these extra segments here in the middle, which is going to help deform this geometry. If you don't have that much geometry, well, then there's nothing to deform, all right? So I will go to deform, and let's grab the nonlinear deformer, and let's go to bend, okay? So we now have bend. I'm going to increase the curvature, and you can see which way it's curving. Now, there's nothing to curve here, so we have to rotate this whole deformer, okay? So I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees in the Y in our channel box, and you can see now it's starting to deform and curve around. Now it's a bit much, so I'll bring that back just a little bit like this, maybe 15 degrees, 20 degrees, something like that. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and stack another freeform deformer and give it another bend. Okay, so this one again, if I go ahead and give it some curvature and rotate it and set it to 0x, then give it 90 in the y. So look at that. Just by simply throwing two bend deformers, it gives us this nice natural curvature. And again, I'll maybe set it to 20 curvature. And if I give this now a favorite material and Fong by simply holding right click, assign favorite material and Fong, look at this highlight. And I can even turn off edge faces and look how smooth that is. No artifacting, you know, no worrying about having to manually push and pull verts. Like if you wanted to, you know, push and pull some things, you might start getting artifacts. But we're all good. Great. But let's just keep going. We can select the lens for the goggle and simply delete history here again. All right. So I'm going to go ahead now and position this. And let's go ahead and start extruding. All right. So I'm going to select this edge loop on the outside, and we're just going to go ahead, shift right click and extrude. And it's going to allow us to extrude this edge. And what I want to do is actually use this in the Y direction. And you can see that I can just simply pull this out. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and pull it out just a little bit to give us kind of that rim for the goggles. Okay, so we have a little bit of thickness there, and then I'm just going to shift move, which is another way to extrude this back a little bit so we get some thickness here, okay? Now, we're not going to worry too much about making this completely perfect, but you can see I can just start to move this out a bit here to kind of help position this on the character. And I could even, if I wanted to, maybe rotate it just a bit here, okay? So we're looking good right now. So what we want to do is we want to now get the strap that runs on the bridge of the nose, and we can grab these edges on the inside. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's these 4 edges here, and I'll shift move this. Once I extruded that, I will also scale this back, scale it in the x-axis like this, and continue to extrude it to pretty much where I get to the center of our axes, right here. Great. And if I wanted to, I can even snap it here in the grid. So just by using the grid snap up here, you can snap it right to the 0 x. So that's looking good. I can also, while I'm here, bring this up and just kind of help give it more organic form. Because again, you can kind of see, basically you kind of have that nice subtle, you know, sits on the bridge of the nose type effect here. So we want to replicate that. Okay. And we can make this, do the same thing here on the top, just make it a little bit more organic. So that's looking good. And then we can go ahead now and extrude this part of the eye. Okay. Or excuse me, this part of the goggle. Now we want to double click to select the edge loop and control click marquee select those on the inside. And now we can just select this border edge here, okay, and shift move these back. All right, so control 1. What I am going to do is select the goggles, select the face, and I would say the eyes as well. So actually I can just simply hide the hair, control H to hide the hair. So now we're good. We can kind of do this unobstructed. Okay, so as we're moving along, we can now start to move these edges here back towards the eye, these edges here, or these vertices. Okay, actually I'm going to grab 1, 2, 3, 4 and move these back here like this. And as they start to clip and intersect, that's where I'll kind of shrink the selection and move these back here. And I'll grab this last vert and just move that in till right about it gets to the eye. And then I'm going to just continue to move this part here on this vertice here. And I essentially just want to make sure that none of my vertices here are intersecting on my character. So I can also maybe, I'll leave these here on the middle and just bring this up. And again, as I'm moving across, I'm just bringing these vertices in. Okay, oops, actually that one was fine where it's at. And I can select these verts on the bridge of the nose and move them out just a little bit more. Now I do want to get in here and make this a little bit thinner. Okay. Something like this. And right here on the center can move up the most. We get that. All right. So that's looking good there. All right. Now, if we wanted to, if we feel like that may be a little bit too big, no worries. We can kind of scale this down, no, you know, and do what we need. And again, just kind of positioning this however we need it to. So that's looking good. And I'll just go ahead and grab these last bit of vertices and continue to move. Okay, so just a little bit of fixing now that we essentially have the form of these goggles here. And what I want to do is these outer verts here, we're just gonna move these out in the X and continue to move them back. So it's gonna, you know, really wrap around the side of the head so it's nice and secure. And do this. Okay, I think we're good. We can always tweak these later. Don't want to spend too much time pushing and pulling verts. Okay, so we have this part of the goggle, which is looking good. And if I wanted to, I can maybe move this out a little bit more, which is really going to give us this nice effect. Actually, I'll go ahead and do that all the way and move these out on the normal. So watch what's happening. So if you look at it, it's a little bit too flat like this, and I can control middle mouse, move these on the normal. Look at that. So that's going to help, again, kind of really secure it to his face. And I want to make sure to do that on the bottom. Okay, something like this. All right. It doesn't like double click here today, so we'll just select these verts and control middle mouse and move these on the normal. Great. And then we can just kind of maybe keep some nice even topology here. This is fine. Okay. I think we're looking good. Great. So here's what we have. Okay. And we can adjust and really secure to his face later, but I think we're good. Now, the next thing I want to do is get the strap going all the way back towards his face, right? And in order to do that, there's a couple different ways. You can really just select these edges here if you wanted to, and hold shift move, right? And all I'm doing is holding shift and moving. Okay. Now, something I will help a lot better, or is a more efficient technique, is using curves. All right. So in order to do that, let's go to here. Let's go to create and go to curve tools and go to CV curve tools. Now, I use this tool a lot, and if I want to add this to my polygon modeling shelf, I can. So hold Control Shift and left click, and bam, look, it just popped up over here just by simply holding Control Shift. And you can do that to any tool in here if you wanted to. Control Shift and click. Okay, and then you can middle mouse position this wherever you want. Okay, if I wanted to maybe put it here with the text tools, curve tools, whatever. Okay, so you can kind of customize this. Now what I want to do is get this curve tool, okay, and actually use that to define the path that I want to extrude. So what I'm going to do is select my character, set him to a live surface, okay, then grab my CV curve tool, all right, and I'm going to actually do this right about the middle here on this edge, because I'm going to extrude 1, 2, 3, 4. So get about the middle way point here and just kind of start from this point and then create a few more points going around the head. Okay. Now, the nice thing is with the CV curve tool, you don't have to create all that many points. And all I'm doing is left click. Okay. Left click, left click, left click, all the way around the head. Okay. What's nice is if you create it and you want to move it, you can middle mouse move this, and look how it's conforming to the surface, because you can use live surface and curve tools to draw surfaces on, or draw curves on existing surfaces. So I'm going to hit Q to exit the tool. So there it is. So if I just go ahead now and center the pivot of this, so using this from our poly modeling tool, and let's look at it, right? There it is. I just moved it so you can see it's just a simple curve. Now what I want to do is go back to my goggles, shift right click, go to edge mode, okay? Let's select the 4 edges I was just talking about. Now, control click curve, the curve, okay? So again, this is very important in order to get this to work. So go to edge mode, select the 4 edges or the edges that you want to extrude, and then control left click the curve. You can just do it out of the outliner, which makes it easy to select instead of trying to grab it here in the viewport. Now, once you've done that, go ahead now and shift right click, extrude edge. Now watch this. Something a little bit weird happened. It just kind of extruded to the end. Well, no worries. You have to make sure to give it some division. So look at this. And now we can go ahead and give this some divisions, okay? So you can see it's starting to curve around the head, but it's acting a little bit weird. So what we need to do is I'll undo that, okay? And what I want to do before I extrude is just kind of take this edge, these sets of edges, and do an initial extrude, something like this, and then scale them. Okay, scale them to make them nice and straight. So there's a little bit less curvature happening here. So something like this, where I'm scaling them in both axes, in the X and the Z axis. So they're flattening out a little bit, which makes sense. Okay. All right. So I think that is looking good. And flatten them out. Great. So you can see we still have some curvature here conforming, but it's not as drastic. So once I do that, and you can even maybe scale this just down a little bit. Okay. And I'm going to just move some verts so it stays nice and even, but I'm going to quickly disable make live. Okay, so we get something like this. And then hit the, again, shift click your edges and control click your curves, shift right click and extrude edge and give it quite a few divisions. So go to divisions and do that. And there you go. So that's a bit better. You don't have as many. Now it might be kind of clipping in there. Okay. And that's no worries. Okay. Because we can just simply modify the extrude, right? So I'll select the edges, shift, extrude edge, add about, let's start out with just simple 8 divisions. And then let's go to our curve. Watch this. As long as you keep the history, control vertex, I'm going to actually remove wireframe on edge. Watch. You can start to move and position these. And essentially it's like a bit of a lattice point here. All right. So this is really nice. It really helps give you a lot of control. And we can use this to easily position this along the character. Now, I know I'm going to give this thickness, so I'm actually going to just move this out just a little bit where we have it off of the off of our character. Okay, so we have something like this, and we can kind of again go and position it as needed. Okay, so that looks good, and we can select this now. And we can go ahead and delete history. Okay. Now, again, if you wanted to, if you're like, you know, that's where, again, soft select comes after you delete history. So you can get this just a little bit closer, maybe even rotate these a bit and get them kind of closer here. And we can maybe even, I don't want to mess with the goggle portion here. So you got to be careful about that, but just kind of move these out just a bit and we get something like that, okay? So again, using kind of soft select, and you can rotate these down. So it's kind of more on the normal of the head, okay? Great. I'm gonna actually increase this quite a bit. All right, so I think we're good here. And we're just gonna leave a little bit of space for when we extrude. but I think we're good as far as getting this position. So notice how I'm just kind of using the rotate, soft select, and we'll get something that looks natural and form-fitting. All right, so what I want to do now is, you know, we can hide this curve so it doesn't continue to get in the way. I can select this, and if I wanted to maybe even scale this strap down so it's a little bit smaller on the way back, we can. I will jump now to the front view, go to X-ray mode, disable soft select, select these verts here in the middle, scale them, and grid snap them to the middle here. Awesome. So now, as you can imagine, what we're about to do is we're going to go ahead and do a quick mirror. So shift right click, mirror. And you can kind of see that it's based off of this position here. That's because when I was last running through, I set the mirror to the object axis position. So just switch that to world and switch that to -X, at least if you have the same orientation. So remember, we want it on this side, which is the -X, and we want to base it off of the world symmetry line. Okay. So that looks good. This goggles is looking really nice. So what I want to do from here is hit Q, exit the tool, and now I want to kind of create that simple strap. Okay, so what I can do is go back to the back portion of the back portion of this strap. So actually, let me see kind of what happened here. If I, looks like there's some extra verts here, no big deal. I can just delete them, or just by using backspace. And if I go ahead now and hit, double click this edge here, rotate, I'm going to use a little bit of soft select to kind of get this rotated and in position. Awesome, that's looking good. Okay, oops, we want to make sure we turn off grid snaps too. Move this out just a little bit. Okay, so we have this. And now what I can do is hit B to exit the soft select tool and double click this edge here, and I'm going to hit detach components. So with detach components, now I can select these edges here. Actually, what I'm going to do is just kind of safely select these verts, these faces, and take a look at that. Okay, so now I can move these edges here independent of each other and not have to worry about them being combined. So the whole point of that is so I can kind of create this overlapping strap that you would typically find on the back. So all I need to do now is create kind of that latch that will connect these and hold these together. Okay, so I'm going to hold shift right click, create a cube. Let's bring that up in position here and move these back, move this cube in position kind of like this. And we're going to use this to create this, essentially this buckle. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is we will go ahead and jump to our channel box and increase the width. So it's about, let's say, it's a bit wide. So 6 wide, and I definitely want to set this on the 0x, so it's about even. There we go. And I will go ahead and actually set the height and width depth to maybe 0.8, so it's a little bit small, a little bit thinner. Okay, I mean, you can use scale too. I mean, it really doesn't matter, whichever one you're comfortable with. And then what I want to do is add a subdivision running down the width. So we're just going to add one there, and let's move. Okay, so now we're gonna, now that we have this, I'm going to add the multi-cut tool, so multi-cut, and I'm gonna, you know, just kind of cut this here. Actually, I do want to make sure I have symmetry on, so jump to your modeling toolkit, set symmetry on, and do world X since we're on the X, and we can jump back to multi-cut. There we go. So now we have something that looks pretty square. Again, it's not perfect. I'm not too worried about that. Then shift move this up. Okay, so we have that. And if we wanted to, I mean, we can do a quick multi-cut and middle mouse click this here. And we can do a quick, just to make sure this is, if we wanted to, perfectly symmetrical going up the Y, we can use the Control 1 to isolate. And then watch this. I can hit Insert or D on the keyboard, hold V for a vertex snap, and now we've set essentially our line of symmetry here. And I can go to the mirror function and set this to positive Y, to Y and positive direction, and set the object, and then boom, look at that. So now we have symmetry here. So if I Control 1, you can see now I can continue to move this and we're back to having full symmetry on both sides. Okay, so we can go ahead and position this like so. Maybe even move this out just so it's a little bit more rectangular. Okay, and what I want to do is actually move this maybe to the back of his head here. And well, you know, we can start doing what we need to. Okay. So what I want to do now is get these straps in the proper position. All right. Now we are missing one last extrusion. So I'm going to grab these. I'm going to grab these to this buckle, and I'm going to grab this edge here, and we're going to bevel this. Okay. And bevel it and get a small fraction, maybe honestly 0.15 is fine. And then what we can do is select these faces here like so and do a quick bridge. Awesome, there we go. So now we actually have the buckle loop that we're going to use to use for these edges to extrude. So watch this next part, right? So we have these edges. I'm going to grab these vertices, these edges here, and I'm going to disable world symmetry off because we're no longer working with a symmetrical object. And I'm going to position this here. And we're going to shift move and kind of shift move this underneath this buckle piece here. And then shift move. Okay, so this buckle, so watch. If I select this and grow this selection, this is what I have. What I'm going to do as well is I'm going to give this a new material because I think it'll be a little bit easier to view. So Fong, and we can just quickly grab and delete history. Really, we don't need any of the history we have so far. And again, just kind of eyedrop the brown material for our goggle, and we're back to work. Okay. Okay, so now we have this this part of the strap here, just so you can kind of see. Let me make sure to only have the strap here selected. So this is the strap that I have. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and grab the inside piece. So this one here. And for this edge here, so you can see it's this edge here, scale it in the X, move it. This is going to loop now around this portion. Okay, so I would take a look at just kind of buckle references so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. But this is going to allow us to really strap this into our loop here. Okay, so there. So we have this loop here that is kind of looping, and all I'm using is edge copy. And then I have this loop that loops around the middle here. Okay. I also want to make sure to multi-cut this like so, and grab this edge here. Excuse me. There we go. Again, kind of scale it and move it back. Okay. I'm also going to scale it here in the Z. All right. So that's looking good. And you can maybe do the same here. But it's getting pretty tight as we get our way towards the back. You can see there's still no clipping. Okay, so once you have that, then we can go ahead now and start to give this entire goggle set a thickness. Now I need to make sure I do fix whatever clipping is still happening. No big deal. Something like this. Okay. Great. Now just remember, You can like maybe delete and redo the symmetry, but I'll just quickly adjust this. No big deal right now. It's just these two, and it's okay, right? This is leather. Leather is fairly organic. If there's no symmetry, not a big deal. Okay, I mean, you can also kind of scale this in too if you wanted to kind of fix up these sides and also maybe remove some of the soft select. All right, anyways, I think we're good. You don't need to kind of see me scale and clean up some edges. All right, let's quickly move along here. And then what I will do now is Control 1 and Shift Extrude, okay? And what I'm gonna do is actually move this outwards like so. And now we have a 0.5 thickness. I think that'll be good all around. And there you go, look at that. So now we have this nice, you know, thickness set for our character here. I'm actually maybe scale these in, move these out, right? So a little bit of cleanup on some things, you know, going around. I will also move these here. Maybe I'll just move, I won't edge slide these, okay? Something like this. All right, a little bit of cleanup here, and we're gonna move these edges over. All right, so I think we're good there. We have some cool looking goggles that run around our character's head. And since we actually extruded the other direction, no big deal. We can just simply grab our soft select and start to move these back just so you get a nice, where it just starts to touch the character's head. Okay. And maybe make it a little bit larger. Okay. But really, once you do this, it's just a matter of kind of just doing the final tweak. And honestly, we're not going to have the goggles on our character. We're just eventually going to take this, and if I center pivot, delete history, move this, it's going to kind of sit on his neck. So we're okay to have it not, you know, perfect, because we're not going to have him wearing it in any of the renders. Okay, so last thing here is if we take a look at our buckle, you can kind of see what I was talking about. We have this now working together, and what I want to do is actually select this. If you want to keep it a square or very, you know, cube-like, you certainly can. I'm actually gonna try to bevel this, so I will go to Shift right click, and actually let's jump to the modeling toolkit and do a bevel. Watch this. Okay, and turn on edged faces and increase fraction maybe to, no, not 1, maybe 0.7, and give it 2 segments. Boom, look at that. So we have a much more natural looking, you know, but maybe not more natural, it's the same shape overall, but I wanted to make it look a little bit smoother. So take a look, I can select it now, and I'm gonna soften edge and just set this to soften edge. Look at that. So that's looking good. Then you can do a final tweak here on your loop. So I'm gonna bring this in here, and I will probably, you know, use multi-cut to kind of cut some more edges in to kind of really conform to this loop. Something like this. And we can just continue to make sure this is tight all around and look very natural. All right, so that's looking nice. I'm gonna actually move this edge here. And you can see that I have that edge here. We're definitely missing one that's running along this set of faces here. So I'm gonna multi-cut that again. And let's just cut that in. So you can see now this is gonna come in under underneath. So see, coming underneath and looping around. So it all makes logical sense. I'll maybe multi-cut again. There we go. Great. So just a little bit of cleanup, but I think you get the idea at this point. So what I'm going to do is continue to do that, a little bit of cleanup. Actually move this so it doesn't clip too much. Yeah, I'm actually going to leave it kind of coming up. I like how it looks like it's really tight on that strap. All right, I think we're good. I think we're good here. Okay, Control 1, and if you wanted to, I mean, you can scale this in, since we beveled it and lost some volume, it's a little bit tighter there. Okay, to finalize this, I will go ahead and add a few bevels to kind of separate how this object is coming together. So what I mean is, now that we have this here, I'm gonna go ahead now and tab select, tab left click, and shift up. And what we're gonna do is extrude. We're gonna move this back in to give this piece some thickness, or make it look like it's two separate components. Maybe I might go minus, no, that's too much. Minus 0.25 honestly was fine. And from here, that's good. And what I'm going to do now is select this edge loop going around. Because again, if we look at a reference, I'm looking at my reference here, you can see that we kind of essentially are going to create this. So I'm going to now add in a bevel here. Now make sure to continue that throughout all the way around this loop here. And let's just do a nice bevel going across and give this 2 segments. Okay, something like this. And maybe tighten this up a bit, 0.35. There we go. That's looking good. And I like that. We can also, you know, shift multi-cut. And maybe add one here in the middle and move this out on the normal as well. So let's make sure, do that on the other side and move these out on the normal. Look at that. Adding a little bit more form here. And once you have this edge selected, watch this. Control right click, go to two faces. Look at that. Now I can actually grow this selection. I like this. And just right click, assign favorite material Fong. Let's give this kind of a tanned look. So I'm going to delete history here, go to Fong 12. I'm going to name these here shortly, these materials, just to keep track. And maybe set this to kind of a pale, you know, yellow metal. Something like this. Look at that. So we have this nice metal piece being attached to the leather. Then I can go ahead and tab left click here. And guess what? This is going to be our black glass. Okay, just quickly doing that. And get that last one there. You can also, you know what? Watch this. Let's just select this middle one and grow this selection. Okay, and one more. I think we're good there. Yes, we are good. And just right click, hold right click, favorite material, Fong. And let's make this guy black or near black. Look at that. Cool. So we got our goggles looking good, nice and smooth. A little bit of tweaking. Oops. So notice this here, you guys. If you notice when your bevels kind of create extra geo, no big deal. Shift right click and merge vertices and just kind of clean these up. So it thinks maybe it wants to continue in the other direction. So glad we caught that before the end of the tutorial. Oops. G. And once you do the last function, just repeat last with G. I'll probably end up making some more adjustments, some tweaking here, but overall, this is the way to approach creating a nice, quick set of goggles for your character. Look at that. You can change the shape, do whatever you want, but I'm pretty happy with what we got. So it looks natural. We got the strap here, and we can, you know, again, do some cleanup, but I won't bother you guys with that. I'll clean all of that up in between these videos, and we'll just move forward. So as always, if you found this useful and helpful, please like and subscribe. It's always appreciated, guys. I will see you in the next video, and we will model our hammer. See you there.